Hi, this is Jen, and thanks for joining me. Today I am creating 10 cards using stamps from scrapbook.com. They had contacted me and asked me, or they were actually looking for local card makers, and they asked me if I would be interested in creating some cards with their stamps for Christmas in July, and of course I said yes. And so I went and picked them up and created 1 to 2 cards. I created 10 total, so I didn't create 2 cards with each stamp set, but I did create at least 1 with each stamp set. So these are the stamp sets. I also wanted to let you know something I'm doing that's new is I am putting a link to a Google Doc, and it's going to have a supply list. So when I do my videos, I'm doing this because I'm somebody that when I find a product, I look at several different sources to find the cheapest price. I almost always purchase from scrapbook.com for a lot of things because you can't get them in the store. And they are, as I've noticed, cheaper than Amazon in a lot of cases. But I'm putting a link to the doc, and it's just going to show everything, every supply that I've used in my videos. And I think it might be helpful because you will be able to print it out. And, you know, maybe you don't want to get something right away. I know when I see a video, I don't always just jump on it right away and get the supply. And so I am going to have a link for that in every video and on my blog if you're interested in that. And so the card's already started without me. So for this first card, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And so I wanted, this is a new to me stencil. It's a honeybee stamps, what is that called? It is a scene builder stencil, and it has the clouds, and I really wanted to use it. And so I took this ink by Wendy Vecchi and made the clouds as the background. And you might think that's kind of weird for a Christmas card, but you can't see the clouds in the background really. It just looks kind of blue. And then I'm using this red rubber stamp by Catherine Pooler, and this is a plaid background stamp. And so I have already used my embossing bag, and I'm using my Versamark ink pad, and I'm just going around the edges to kind of wipe some of that ink off of the edges. And I don't think it matters because it goes over the size of the paper. And then I'm going to use this embossing powder, which I used several times during this video. I absolutely love it. It's a Lindy Stamp Gang Angel Wings Gold embossing powder. And it looks really pretty on white, and then on black it's more of a gold. On white it just kind of looks a little sparkly, I guess. I don't know. But on black you can really tell it's gold. And then I stamped it again. I re-embossed, I stamped again, and I put the Wow Metallic Silver embossing powder over that. So now you can't really see the clouds. You could just see like a faint blue background. And like I said, I kind of had an idea, but I wasn't sure, and so it's kind of experimentation. So next I'm going to take the same ink that I used for the background, and it is sky blue. And I'm taking this big dauber, and I'm just taking a piece of scratch paper, and I'm going to emboss. And I'm just going to take the embossing ink pad and just cover that piece of paper where I have inked it up with blue. And then I will cover that with the embossing powder, which this is a Ranger Frosted Crystal embossing powder, which is really pretty also. And so I just cover where that embossing ink is and melt that with my heat tool. And then I'm going to take the Sizzix Snowflake dies and run that through my Big Shot. And they turned out really pretty, just a faint blue, which is kind of hard to see against the card when it's finished, but in person you can really see it. And then the sentiment that I'm using from this set is Joy to the World, and I just took a piece of vellum and heat embossed the sentiment in white, and then I put double-sided tape behind the letters Joy so that you couldn't see it through the vellum, and placed that on the card. And then I'm taking my glitter glue to adhere the snowflakes. And that will complete the card. There's 3 snowflakes that were added. Really easy and kind of elegant, I think. I like how it turned out. For this next one, I really love the stamp set. It's called Naughty and Nice. And I am using that stamp set along with this cute little hamster stamp set by Art Impressions. This is called Mouthfuls because there are 2 dies in there that go in the hands and the mouth, and so it's super cute when it's all put together. I'm going to stamp him up in Memento Black ink because I will be using my alcohol markers. The alcohol markers I use, or I've just started using recently, probably about a month ago, are the Winsor & Newton. I really like them. I don't use them enough, I don't think, to justify starting a Copic collection. So that is why I purchased these. The price point is lower and the color is really, really pretty. And so I went ahead and colored that off camera just because it probably took me some time. I think actually for this one I was watching a video on how to color, and so that's why I didn't, because I used my phone to record, and so I was watching a video on how to color this image, and so I ended up doing that off camera. So here are the dies. One goes on the mouth and then one goes on the hands. So I'm just going to place those dies and tape them down and then run that through my die cut machine, and it leaves these little slits where the little elements that came with the stamp set. So I use the flour, the cheese, and the pizza. And then I also grab a candy cane and some holly from another stamp set. And then the hat that is on the hamster is from this stamp set. I think it's supposed to be a party hat because it's more of a birthday stamp set. But it works perfectly as a little Santa cap also. So I am just putting the elements in his hands and in his mouth. And then once I have those in place, I will flip it over and use double-sided tape to make sure that those don't move around. And then the sentiment for this stamp is it's Christmas, calories don't count. So when I saw the stamp set, I thought it was so fitting to go with this hamster. And I don't know what the name of this stamp set is, and I think I posted the document without finding that out. So, but from that Christmas stamp set, it's a Hero Art stamp set. I got the piece of holly and the candy cane. And then I did the background, I totally skipped over that part, in a distress ink. And I believe that is mustard seed. And that will complete that card. For this next card, I am using the stamp set that's Sassy Christmas. I'm also using this Stamp Market set called Love and Cookies. And I go ahead and stamp several of those cookies out and emboss that in white. And I am using my Tombow brush markers to color the images. The numbers that I use overall are 977, 942, 817, 451, 173, 055, and 020. So the first 2 colors on the cookies for the shadow and the outline are 977 and 942. And then the rest of them are the pinks and yellows and greens that are used to color in the cookies, or like the icing, I guess. For the icing on the cookies, I'm using Finnabar Art Paper Texture Paste. It's the perfect consistency to look kind of like icing on a cookie. I'm taking a little bit of the paste and mixing it with the color, but I do also color the images with the Tombow markers and water. So I only frost, I wasn't really sure. I was going to frost all of them and then decided that I only wanted a few frosted. So I just frosted a few. So I'm going to spread the color with the with my watercolor pen. And then I'm going to take the paste that I mixed with the marker color and spread that. And I basically do I do a star and then I do a round cookie with the paste. And the rest of them I just color with the Tombow markers. And I'm trying to use up supplies that I don't often use. I don't often use the Tombow markers, but they have a huge range of colors and they're really pretty and really, really easy to work with. So I absolutely loved using them. I had stamped the sentiment up in Let's Celebrate. I stamped in Acorn, and then the pink portion I stamped in Charming Pink, and these are VersaFine Clairs. I mounted that on a pink backdrop, and then I put some foam tape behind the sentiment portion, and that completes that card. This next card, I use the scrapbook.com sentiment stamp set Christmas Wishes, and then I use the stamp set by Pink Fresh Studio Forest Friends and the coordinating die named the same, Forest Friends. So I've already went ahead and did the die cut, and I'm taking my Memento ink and stamping up the different characters. So there's a deer, a squirrel, and a bear, and they all fit into these little cutouts for the die. And I checked today at scrapbook.com, and the die is actually on sale for like $10, so it's a great deal. Or it's on clearance, actually. Scrapbook.com right now has a lot of stuff on clearance. So I did some different things with this panel. As you can see on the right-hand side, I had inked it up, and I didn't like the dark branches, and so I did end up using that. But the oxides that I used for the color are Tumbled Glass and Mowed Lawn, and so that's the background. And this was just a scrap paper that I had put some ink on. And I had tried several things, I didn't like it, and so what I ended up doing was stamping the trees in with my embossing ink and using a clear embossing powder. And then I went ahead and popped up the panel with the animals on it with some foam tape and stamped up a green piece of paper for the sentiment, and that will complete that card. I really love the stamp and die set, it's so cute. So this next card is a Merry and Bright, is basically the sentiment from the stamp set Heartfelt Christmas. And I'm using my Prismacolor colored pencils in shades of green. The greens that I used are Chartreuse, Spring Green, and a dark green. And I just show this little tiny bit of coloring just because I'm basically just using the three colors. I used the lightest color to kind of give the highlights, because I looked at some pictures of cactus and of saguaro in particular, and they have some lighter greens, dark greens, and so that's what I ended up coloring with. And then I'm going to take my colored pencils, my different colored pencils, like a red, yellow, orange, and a purple for the Christmas lights. And then I also go over the Christmas lights using a clear wink of Stella. And then I go over the lights, or the light string that wraps around the cactus in my black micron pen, just to give it a little more definition. And then I'm stamping two different colors for the sentiment. So the first portion of the sentiment, I'm using VersaFine Clair in Tulip Red. And so I just kind of masked that off so that I could stamp that portion without the bottom portion. And then I go ahead and stamp the Bright with gold embossing powder. Mounted that on a red card base, and that completes that card. For this next card, this was kind of a mess for me. I tried several different things. The stamp set I'm using for this is Big and Beautiful Holidays, and the die is by Altenew, and it's a plaid cover die B. I ran this through my die cutting machine 3 different times, so I have 3 layers of paper. I left some of the pop-outs in, and I just, so they wouldn't fall out, I put double-sided tape on the back. And then I took my glitter glue and I adhered all of the layers together. And then the final piece I went ahead and put on my white card base. And I'm using these Silky Crayons by Creatology, which is from Michaels. Very inexpensive, under $7. And they work just like the Tim Holtz ones. There's Bria Reese. There's several different brands of these Silky Crayons. They're really smooth. Some of the colors are smoother than others. So basically I'm just taking a few different green colors. I first tried wiping with a baby wipe, but the water worked much, much better. And I also found that if you did the colors like more in a circular motion and more concentrated, it was a lot easier to spread out and not leave like a big dark center. But they're very easy to work with. And the price point on these was excellent. Like I said, I think it was under $7, and if you had a coupon, they're even cheaper. Or maybe it was $7 with the coupon, I'm not sure. At any rate, they're a lot less expensive than some of the brands that are out there. And so for the green, and I also made a red panel, I just took this Sizzix Thinlits Mini Holiday Greens die set and cut out several pieces. So that was my first try. I did kind of a brown background with blue lettering with a totally different sentiment. And I don't know why I didn't like that, because I look at it now and I think it's fine. But I think I just wanted to put the green against a black backdrop. And so that's what I did. And this is the one card that scrapbook.com didn't use in any of their promo videos. So out of 10 cards, they used 9 of them. So I'm happy about that. For this next card, I am using the Heartfelt Christmas stamp set by scrapbook.com, and I am also using a stamp and die set from Recollections, and it's the Poinsettia stamp and die set, and this is one you can get at Michael's. So I've already used my embossing bag over my panel, and it's a watercolor panel, and I'm taking my Versamark embossing ink. And so what I do is I stamp one poinsettia, and then I go ahead and spread the powder on that image, but don't heat it. And so I go around the whole card because it's kind of hard to see the white and where to place the next stamp. So it was easier for me to go ahead and stamp it and then spread the powder just so I had a better idea of where the images were. And most of these I am using the Recollections Fine White Detail Embossing Powder. On one of them I use the Lindy's Stamp Gang Angel Wings Embossing Powder, which I absolutely love. And when I show you the close-up of the difference in the embossing powders, you can tell which one is the Lindy's and which is just the white embossing powder. There you go. So I've already heat set it, and this is what I'm going to be coloring. And so the coloring that I'm going to use for this is Genuine Crafts watercolor brush pens. I purchased the 100 set from Amazon. I love these pens. There's a huge range of colors, and you just need a tiny bit of ink to make the color work. And a lot of times on this I actually use too much ink. So what I'm doing when I color these watercolor images is I'm just taking a little bit of ink. Some of it I trace the outline and then spreading it with my watercolor pen. And I'm not doing petals that are right next to each other. I do a petal and spread it with water, and then I move to a petal that's not touching it just till it gets dry. And this is embossed, so it doesn't probably matter all that much. They're not going to be like right next to each other and spread unless I accidentally touch it, but I just felt better kind of going around the card and not doing the petals right next to them until the others were completely dry. The only thing bad about these Genuine Craft watercolor brush pens is that they don't have colors or numbers on the markers. So I would be able to tell you what colors I used because they don't identify them in any way. So I just have mine marked, and I just count which one from my color chart that I want to use. And I have each of the trays in the box marked. There's 4 trays of colors, and so I have them marked 1 through 4 so that I can tell from looking at my swatch card what colors I want to use. But I mean, that's the only downside to these, but a really good price point, and they are absolutely beautiful colors, and they work just wonderfully. So I go ahead and color all the poinsettias, and then all of the leaves I color with the green. And then on the bottom, I was really nervous about doing this, but I took this herringbone embossing folder, which is from Joann's, and just did I was going to do the whole card, and then I was like, no, I just did all that coloring. So I did the bottom half, and part of the poinsettias on the bottom did get embossed, but you can't really tell. I just love how that texture looks against the watercolor. And then I also did a light gray color wash with the gray watercolor marker, and I didn't wait for it to completely dry, so I had a hard time getting this greetings to come out bold enough. And so I took this little, it's called a Fantastic brush, and if I remember correctly, the reason I purchased them was because Vicky P had used them doing something, and I was like, well, I got to get those. And so I bought them, and I don't know that I've ever used them. But to fill in the blank spots for this sentiment, I went ahead and just tapped it on the ink pad and then filled in the little white spots, and it worked perfectly. I went ahead and mounted that to a white card base and added some, I think it was Morning Dew, some Nuvo Morning Dew drops, and that completes this card. I really love how this card turned out. So for this next card, I am using the Scrapbook.com Big and Bold Holiday Stamp Set, and I am using several different Catherine Pooler inks, which are Garden Party, Lime Ricky, and Melon Ice. And then I'm also using my We Are Memory Keepers pattern stamping block, which is really helpful in getting, for repeat stamping. So I'm just going to use the same sentiment 3 times, 3 different colors. The first color I'm using is the Lime Ricky. So I stamped it up, and then I move the sentiment over and place my stamping block again. And then I will use the color Garden Party. And this is a really cute stamp set, very versatile. You can color it all different ways. Really pretty. And then the last one I will stamp up in Melon Ice. And this is all against the card. There's no panel, it's just right on the card base. And then I took a die, a banner stitched die, and used the sentiment Merry Christmas for Our Home to Yours in Rockin' Red. And that will complete that card. For this next card, it's really quick. I'm using the Scrapbook.com Naughty and Nice Sentiment Stamp Set. And I'm also using the envelope from the stamp set I used earlier with the hamster. I used this Doris embossing folder, and I just did that right on my card base. I don't have a panel. I colored the envelope, and I'm also using the sentiment from that stamp set by Scrapbook.com that says, "You are my very own Santa." I went ahead and adhered those, and then took some Nuvo Dream Drops in Cloud 9, and that completes that card. Really quick. Really quick and simple, yet I think very effective. So for the last card, I really love the sentiment, and I kind of wish that I didn't do everything that I did in the card. The sentiment is really, really beautiful. It's got this big, bold wording, believe, and then it says in cursive writing, in the magic of Christmas, and it's so pretty. And I end up kind of taking away a lot of that cursive sentiment on the bottom. But I went ahead and used my, I believe it was the Angel Wings Gold, Lindy Stamp Gang Angel Wings Gold, and embossed that sentiment onto a watercolor card base. And then I'm using my Kuretake, I think that's how you say it, pan watercolor set. And I'm just using several shades of blue to go ahead and go across the card. And sometimes I get too much water when I'm doing watercolor stuff. Sometimes I don't get enough water, I feel like. I really like these colors together though. And I think the card would have been fine if I had just left it. I ended up making a shaker card, but if I had just did the watercolor background and left that sentiment as is, because that sentiment really is so pretty, I think it would have held its own and been fine. But I take these 3 different colors of blue, and then I also use the Kuretake Starry, I don't know if it's called Starry Nights or it's called Starry. It has some golds and whites, kind of more metallic watercolors. And I believe it's in a set of 6, maybe. So I take the white, it's kind of like a metallic white, and just kind of, not spritz, I can never think of the word when this is splatter. I just do some paint splatters on the card, and it kind of looks like snow or something in the background. And I let the panel dry completely, and then I cut it out, the entire panel, using a Pink Fresh Studio diagonal stitched die. And then I'm also using this die, and this is going to be the shaker portion. This is by Kaisercraft, and it's a decorative frame die, and I think the die itself is so pretty, but I'm not so sure that I used it right. So I made this a shaker card. I went ahead and skipped showing that whole process. I put the foam tape on the back and then inserted my Queen and Company gems in clear and like the light blue color. And I put this on and I was like, oh my gosh, I did it backwards. My card is upside down. So it doesn't open correctly. And so all I did was I just cut off the other side of the card, got another card panel, made sure that it opened the right way, and that completes that card. I think it's really super pretty. And that's it. That's the 10 cards I made with these stamp sets. If you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Again, thanks so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun making these cards, and I hope you enjoyed watching.